Hey everyone, welcome back to the PTL Finance Hub. In today's video, we're going to talk about something you've probably heard a lot about recently: inflation. It's one of those financial terms that impacts everyone, but not everyone knows exactly what it is or how it works. So if you've ever wondered why prices seem to keep going up, stick around as we break down inflation in simple terms. So, what exactly is inflation? In simple terms, inflation is the general increase in prices of goods and services over time. When inflation happens, the purchasing power of your money decreases. This means that over time, the same amount of money buys fewer goods or services than it used to. For example, you might remember a time when a gallon of milk cost less than $1, or when you could fill your gas tank for $20. If you're noticing that prices seem higher today than they did a few years ago, that's inflation at work. But inflation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a normal part of a healthy economy. Moderate inflation encourages spending and investment, but when it gets too high or too low, it can create problems. Now that we know what inflation is, let's talk about what causes it. There are two main types of inflation: demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation happens when demand for goods and services exceeds supply. Think of it like this: when a lot of people want to buy the same thing, companies can raise prices because there's more demand than there is supply. This often happens in a growing economy where people have more disposable income, so they spend more. Cost push inflation, on the other hand, occurs when the cost of producing goods and services increases. If companies have to pay more for raw materials, transportation, or labor, they pass those costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. There's also built-in inflation, where people expect prices to rise, so they demand higher wages, and businesses raise prices to cover those wage increases. It's a bit of a cycle, with rising costs driving inflation even further. Inflation is usually measured by looking at the prices of a basket of goods and services that people typically buy, like food, housing, and transportation. This is known as the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The CPI tracks how the prices of these everyday items change over time, giving us a clear picture of how much inflation is happening. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the United States or the Bank of England, watch inflation closely to ensure it doesn't get out of control. Their goal is to keep inflation at a manageable rate, usually around 2% per year, which is considered healthy for the economy. So, why does inflation matter to you? Well, inflation affects your everyday life. When prices go up, your purchasing power goes down, meaning your money doesn't stretch as far. This can make it harder to afford things like groceries, gas, or rent. Even if you're earning the same amount of money, if prices rise, you might feel like you're getting poorer. Inflation also impacts your savings and investments. If inflation is higher than the interest you're earning on your savings, the value of your money is actually decreasing over time. That's why many people invest in stocks, bonds, or real estate. These assets tend to grow faster than inflation, helping you maintain or increase your wealth in the long run. One interesting thing about inflation is how it affects debt. When inflation is high, it can actually reduce the real value of your debt. Let's say you took out a loan with a fixed interest rate. If inflation goes up, the value of the money you're paying back decreases, making it easier to pay off. So inflation can be good for people with fixed-rate debt, but not so great for lenders. Thanks so much for watching. Now that you know what inflation is, you can better understand how it affects your daily life and your finances. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more helpful personal finance tips from the PTL Finance Hub. And let me know in the comments, have you noticed the impact of inflation on your budget? What are you doing to manage it?